Hello and welcome to the WriteCome.com podcast, where we help you to make money from your words. Each episode will be sharing tips, tricks, and strategies you can use to make more money from your writing, publishing, and marketing to your fans and audience. Let's get started with your host, Barry J. McDonald.
Hi, this is Barry here, and you are very welcome to today's podcast episode from WriteCome.com, and today's podcast episode is entitled Forgive Yourself. Now, that probably seems like an unusual topic compared to some of the previous ones we have done, but it's something I think we should all look at from time to time. Unfortunately, sometimes we are our own worst enemies, and sometimes we take a great pleasure in beating ourselves up over things we have done in the past, and sometimes hold on to resentments and things like that that don't really help us, in the future, or help us in our business, or help us in maybe doing what we need to do. When I look back at some of the things that I used to be angry with, it probably seems like unusual things to be angry with, but sometimes I used to be angry with myself when I used to, for the longest time, I wanted to be a fiction writer, and then when I actually started writing fiction, I realised how easy it was. And again too, when it came to podcasting, for the longest time I wanted to record a podcast of my own, and again too, I put it off for the longest time because I kept thinking to myself, well, those people are special, they can be podcasters, I can't. And when I actually started recording my own episodes, I realised how easy it was, and I was angry at myself in both cases for how long I actually took me to get the courage up and how long it took me to actually do it. If I started writing my fiction, I'm sure I would have written a lot of books before now, more than I have at the moment. And again to podcasting, this podcast would probably have more episodes, and it would probably be a lot bigger if I had recorded my episodes earlier. And while that probably seems like a little thing to be angry about, I was angry with myself over that. And again too, I used to be angry with myself over the things I've done in the past, creating websites, building blogs, and working at them for a couple of months, and then dropping them and going on to the next kind of bright shiny object, and just leaving all that work to kind of fall by the wayside. When I think back to how often Catherine would let me potter away on the computer for a couple of hours at a time and take care of the kids, and I used to be writing blog posts and creating articles and building websites and all that, and then after a couple of weeks I would just let all that fall by the wayside. I would not pay my hosting fee or whatever, and then all that hard work would be gone, just completely vanished and just erased off the internet. I want to think back to how naive I was and how much of her time I'd wasted. And again too, when it came to maybe buying Google Sense ads, she used to give me some money every so often to supplement the income I had coming in, to pay for my ads or pay for this or pay for that, and again to give me time to myself. And when I think back to how much time I had wasted, how much money I'd wasted, it's very easy for me to get angry with myself and curse myself for being how stupid it was, how lazy I was, and not maybe forgiving the earlier version of me because of all those mistakes I've made. So that's why I'm recording this podcast episode. Again, I don't know what your history is like. Maybe you have been procrastinating writing, maybe you have things in your past, like maybe I have, that maybe you haven't forgiven yourself for, and because of that you're carrying this kind of dead weight on your shoulder. So maybe today should be the day you kind of lift all that negativity off yourself and just forgive that previous version of you, the younger version of you, because when you do kind of look back on yourself, when I look back on the younger version of me compared to where I am, unfortunately sometimes we look back on the younger version of ourselves through the experience we have right now, and maybe that's why we aren't sympathetic to the type of person we were back then. I can probably look back on the earlier version of me and I can say, well, I was naive, I was I didn't have much knowledge, I didn't have much experience, and because of that then I made those stupid mistakes. Because of then I worked on a couple of websites for a couple of months and then dropped it, and because I was naive I got dragged into the kind of bright shiny object syndrome and I followed the herd. And it's only later on when I had more experience, when I learned from those mistakes, I realised, well, if I'm going to build something, it's something I need to stay with long term, I need to show up regularly, but I can't be jumping one thing to the other. So it's easy for me to look back on that younger version of me and get angry with myself and angry with the younger version of me that was a complete introvert, who was afraid to speak on a microphone, who was afraid of writing any content at all because I was afraid what other people would think or what other people would say or what reviews or what comments I would get from my written content. It's easy for me to look back on that younger version of me and just get angry with myself, but Unfortunately, that was the me back then, and the me back then is completely different than the one that is here right now. So if you do have any resentment to yourself, maybe you are resenting yourself because you haven't taken action in the past, maybe it's just time to let that go today. Let today be a clean slate that you are going to start from today onwards, and just forgive that, the younger version of you who had less experience, who had, naive or whatever, and just let that person go. And, because as I said, sometimes holding on to that resentment and that anger, it does affect how we, build our businesses right now. And unfortunately, if you kind of, give up some of your attention or give up some of your energy to the type of person you were back then, unfortunately, you're not going to give 100% to yourself, to your content today, your writing, or whatever it is you are looking to do. So maybe it's time just to let that go. Let it go in the past, let the past bury the past, and just look at the future and take your business, whatever, from today onwards. But just forgive yourself, let it all go, and let's start with a clean slate today. Or again too, maybe it's just me who is holding on to that anger and resentment, and maybe I'm only recording this podcast episode for me, but maybe there might be somebody else out there who might be in the same situation as myself. So if you are like me, if you are carrying some anger, resentment, maybe, whatever it is in the past, maybe it's time to let it go. So as always, if you'd like to reach out to me, if you'd like me to cover anything in a podcast episode, or you'd just like to reach out to me by email, just send an email to barryjmcdonald@gmail.com. And if you'd like to subscribe, if you like what I am talking about at the moment, or you'd like to share this episode with somebody else, feel free to subscribe or hit some of the social media buttons nearby, and you can share the content with somebody else. And as always, thanks for sharing your time again today. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today. If you'd like more from the RightCome.com podcast, be sure to subscribe now for more tips, tricks, and ideas you can use to make more money from your words. See you in the next episode.